And we are back in the building once again. The Big Free Show continues on the channel. Another week, another week of so many flashpoints in the NBA. Some big plays, some big dunks, some big results. A lot of talking points. Man like CM in the building joining me here tonight. What you saying, my bro?
Hey, big up yourself, bro. Big up Chino. Big ups to everybody in the comments. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good week. We're here, man. We're here to speak hoops.
That's it, man. Like CM said, big up to Chino. Hopefully you'll be here in a bit. But make sure you're hitting the like button, subscribe button as well. If you're new, hit the notification bell and all that good stuff right there. Let's get into the first topic for tonight. And this is Luka Doncic, facing off against a Mavs team that he was recently traded from. The Lakers obviously beating the Mavs 107-99. I watched that game actually. It was a pretty good game, especially in that third quarter where it looked like the Lakers were looking to run away from with the game, but the Mavs got right back into the game and they cut the lead down to 1. Klay Thompson was going off. Kyrie obviously doing Kyrie things. Luka getting a triple double overall. To beat his former team. He was heating up in that first quarter, hitting a couple of threes, looking at the bench of Dallas, looking at Nico Harrison. There was a little picture that came out. I don't know if it was AI generated or if it was a real thing, but yeah, he looked like he was feeling it until it got to the point where he kind of slowed down. I still think he's got some rhythm issues that he's just trying to work out with the Lakers based on what I could see. But then after the game, we're hearing more stories getting leaked from the Dallas side about Luka's conditioning. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, so what's happening here? Why are they still leaking stories? The trade is done. You've made your decision. It should be over with now. Like, move forward with your new era now that you've got with AD and Kyrie, Klay, PJ Washington, Derek Lively, all of those guys. Luka is now gone. What's your thoughts on that, bro, when you're seeing these stories still coming out from Dallas about Luka's conditioning?
You know what? I feel like because of the number one, going back all the way back to the trade now, I don't think the Mavs organization did enough, a damage limitation, or they were prepared to do the damage limitation that trade caused. Because when we looked at the scenes of them going to like the Dirk statue, putting up the signs and all of that stuff, the reaction from people, whether it was theatrical or not, I don't think the Mavs organization anticipated how crazy the reaction to this trade was be, and that's on them, because you trade a superstar that's basically your franchise guy, and then you try to cover up the trade by putting all of these things out about his condition. The guy took you to a finals. The guy, since he's come into the league, has constantly performed in big moments. Whether we go back to the bubble against multiple times, in fact, in the playoffs against the Clippers. Now, they may not have advanced in those series, but still, he's had some big moments in some crucial games. And they go to the NBA Finals last year, stamped their first finals berth since 2011, where you bring in guys like Daniel Gafford from Chicago, Kyrie's there. Like, they assembled a good team. For whatever reason, you make that trade. AD's out injured right now. It's yeah, that's another thing within itself, conversation within itself. But we move in it. You saw my man clapping on the bench when Kyrie was getting buckets. But I'm not gonna say anything because AD's a baller. But I'm just saying it could come back to hurt the Mavs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's petty, and even now they're trying to cover up and trying to make themselves look good within this trade. And I don't think they need to. Let the basketball do the talking. You know what I mean? Allow the team to kind of separate themselves from the noise and get to work. That's all you need to do. You've made your decision. You should be confident in your decision now. So allow the people, the basketball decision makers, to make basketball decisions. And at the end of the day, it's not like Luka's throwing continuous shots at the Dallas Mavericks organization. The most he's really said, or I've seen him say, is speak about how shocked he's been and how he hasn't been himself. The other day when he was getting interviewed on after the game, he was talking about how he hasn't been himself and he started to find himself now in a Lakers jersey. And yeah, I mean, the Dallas Mavericks organization are showing how unclassy they are from an outsider's perspective, because you don't need to do all that stuff. We're speaking about. I saw you on Twitter talking about the Luka Doncic thing, and I'm like, okay, come on, man. Like,
Hey, it's a question I have to ask, bro, because like, why are we seeing pictures of him with the hookah? They're talking about him drinking beer, like, and it's like the trade is done. You don't need to save face at this point. The man, the GM, Nico Harrison, made his choice. So what
you
we
know,
do,
you know, it's mad, bro. And even going back to the beer thing, are we gonna act like there are not players in this league who drink wine after games?
there's players we know in the league here that they smoke weed in their downtime.
We
Like,
come
come
on.
on, man. Like, we know this. I've seen Miles Bridges, not Miles Bridges. What's the other guy? Is it Miles Bridges?
Well,
The Hornet,
Hornets.
the Hornets guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I seen him drinking lean, smoking
yeah.
weed. Something
Oh,
like
hey, he's a different case.
it's
He's
a
a
different case.
different
I know,
case.
but like what we're talking about here is like you're talking about
Yeah,
players' lifestyles in comparison to whether they can be, cornerstones of your franchise, right? A guy wants to enjoy himself, some hookah and a beer every now and again, shouldn't be a factor for why, he should be traded away. Do you know what I mean? You only
exactly.
trade him away if you think he's not like capable of taking you to the heights that you're looking for, and that's eventually a championship. If a guy's taking you to 2 Western Conference Finals and a finals, that means you're this close to getting there. It's just about roster construction. Can you build something around him to get you over the line? Like, at the end of the day, I feel like they made a mistake in bringing in Clay, right?
Mm.
Clay's 35. Although he can have nights like he did have on Wednesday night, it's going to be few and far between. It's not going to be very consistent because he's not at that. He doesn't have that explosiveness anymore after the Achilles injuries and all that. So, yeah, I just think it's weird. There's no point in doing it. Wait, bro, give me 1 second. My heat is going mad.
So hey, big ups to man like winning the cut. Hope you're doing well. Your day's been blessed. Appreciate you coming by each and every time. But yeah, in the comments, people, have your say on the Luka Doncic situation, how he's acclimatizing to life in the purple and gold, and obviously what we've just been speaking about, the class of the Dallas Mavericks organization, and what's really going on here.
But look, if we move on a little bit onto the Lakers for a bit, yeah. Now, this is interesting. You know what we were speaking about before the show, like, basically from 2 down to 10, we don't know where everyone's going to finish. The Lakers are on a 3-game win streak right now. I watched their game against Denver. They looked really good, where you're expecting some difficulty in terms of, because obviously they've not beaten Denver, like, I think in quite a long time, or maybe this is their second win in about 10 different games against Denver, right? And the thing that was interesting to me was the way they were defending. They got some big wings now in Vanderbilt. He's back. They got Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura, and they all took turns trying to blitz Jokic at points so that he wouldn't get into his rhythm and into his game and start assisting the other guys on the perimeter and stuff like that. He couldn't really get inside either. Can this Lakers team, as currently constructed, challenge OKC in the West? Can you see something with that? With also LeBron and now with Luka as part of that collective there.
I think the Western Conference is very deceptive. So you'll see OKC as the dominant side. Denver, even though they've gone through their struggles since winning a championship, are still a formidable force in my eyes. But if we're looking at the standings right now, you've got the Grizzlies bouncing back from a year where they had, suspensions and injuries last year. You got the Houston Rockets coming up and being the 4th seed right now. A young team that has good veteran presence, and their continued growth has gone into this season. But when it goes to the Lakers, it's an interesting case, right? Because not long ago I said I don't believe in the Lakers roster, and that was pre-Luka Doncic. And I will stand on business right now and say I still don't believe in that Lakers roster, especially when it comes to taking on OKC, because I think for the most part, even though I do have my worries here and there, we have a much better roster in terms of being able to compete in a 7-game series. The Lakers, I'm still not sure about that because they're still going through their growing pains with Luca, even though he's starting to ramp it up now. LeBron, obviously. And then it's about the consistency of the guys that are around them. Can you have consistent performances from Rui Hachimura? He's not going to be outstanding, but can he be good enough to compete in a playoff series? I'm not going to say get to the conference finals or the finals because I think that's going overboard. But there are good signs. You've got a debut coach, season coach in JJ Redick, who had a good start. They tailed off a bit, and now they're starting to put a run together after that trade with Luca. I mean, there has to be a lot of optimism for the Lakers because you look at LeBron, who's still playing at a good level for his age. It's wild. You look at some of his stat lines this season, and you don't believe the guy's 40 years old. Then you got Luca, who, believe it or not, got shipped away from Dallas because of weight issues and conduct away from the court. It's Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He can't be doing things that bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If he was doing that, even if he was doing that Gilbert Arenas gun in the locker room, it's Luka Doncic. It's Luka.
Oh man, yeah. I think they yeah. The West is very messy, man. It's so tight that literally any one of these teams can have a run of over the next 10 games that put them right in contention for that second seed, third seed, fourth seed, right? To place themselves well ahead of the playoffs. Now, obviously, we know once you get into the playoffs, it's about matchups. And so looking at the way the Lakers are now constructed, because the injury problems have kind of subsided with Vanderbilt, he's a really good perimeter defender, and he's obviously quite a large wing. So, he also can be a presence on the interior, right? Like, watching that game against Denver, I was like, they finally cracked the blueprint of how to beat Denver, right, without AD. Because if you remember last year in the playoffs, right, LeBron and AD were the ones basically trying to stop Jokic. And that because of the production that Jokic can give you on a given night, right, they were so tired by the time they got to the fourth quarter. It's now time for guys like D'Angelo Russell or Austin Reeves or, Rui Hachimura to basically close the game, and they just weren't able to do that. Whereas now when I'm watching, I'm like, you have Dorian Finney-Smith, who he's a good three-point shooter. He's a great defender, right? So you have him. Vanderbilt is back. And then you've got Rui Hachimura, who has actually been shooting the free ball really well this season. He might be getting close to a career year this year. So if he can be consistent, like you said, and then you've got the other two guys there who they offer a presence defensively as well. Now, when the schemes and the matchups are happening in the playoffs, I think something can give there. I don't know if they're going to go there, and I don't think they're going to be able to go all the way, but they're going to be definitely competitive, right? Because you have LeBron, you have Luka. Now, obviously, I still believe OKC have the field. It's theirs to get to a conference final. They can get to a conference finals, then from there you just don't know what's going to happen. They can get out of the West, and it depends on who they match up against. But it should be pretty interesting. Cool. Let's move on to this next topic. Down in Detroit, 8 straight wins. This time last year, they had only won 8 games. They have only won 8 games, right? And you look at the reverse this year, they are at how many wins they're at? They are at 33 wins. They were the team that nobody wanted to lose to. Everybody was like, you just can't lose to Detroit. And JB Bickerstaff has turned it around for that squad. And they won 8 straight games for the first time since 2008. Do you reckon, based on the job that JB Bickerstaff has done, especially after him being fired from his role at the Cavaliers, and look how well the Cavaliers are doing, he's been able to maintain himself and maintain this team and turn this team around. Do you reckon that he is a candidate for Coach of the Year?
I think he's got to be up there, man, because when you look at how I don't even know how to describe the Detroit Pistons of 23-24, but when you look at that team and what happened to them and what they were going through as a side, it was pitiful. It was poor. one of the worst teams and individual seasons or group seasons in NBA history for sure. So when you look at the job thus far, them going on this run, the improvements of Cade Cunningham, because everybody speaks about Cade being that guy to lead this team. He's gone through a few injury issues here and there, but when he's on the court, he has the poise, he has the patience, he has the confidence to lead that team. Your Jalen Durans and so forth continue to be impactful. Malik Beasley is getting a lot of love coming back to Detroit as well. So they have a nice little roster there. I saw Thompson as well. You saw what you almost did to Jason Tatum.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday. I was like, wow.
That was a mean hezzy, but yeah, it's a talented team. Even last year, we looked at the team and it's like there's talent on that team, but it's about finding the correct culture and the players to mesh together, and of course the coach and JB Bickerstaff, because he got relieved of his duties as Cavs head coach, but let's not act like he didn't do a good job with the Cavs as well. For them to get to this point, JB Bickerstaff was a huge part of that. So they've got a good head coach, they've got a good set of players, and then you have guys like even though we do mock him, Tobias Harris, who's been there, he understands what it means to be a Detroit player. Malik Beasley, you've got a few guys who are willing to compete at the end of the day on the court. Dennis Schroeder as well, who moved about quite a bit in these last few years, but still it's a huge improvement up to this point. And I believe they're 6th in the East right now.
Yep.
So we'll have to see if this run continues, how they're able to maintain it, whether they will end up in the playoffs, and where they'll seed if they do. But it's very interesting. I feel like in the NBA we've been seeing a lot of changes in recent times, especially when I earlier today when I looked at the seedings and I saw some of the teams in the West. In the East, you could say usual customers, because you've got the Cavs, Celtics. The Pacers have kind of ascended into one of those teams. The Bucks have taken a little dip in recent times with Giannis and Dame and Co. And the New York Knicks are an interesting team that maybe we might need to speak about, because I saw something the other day, right, where they haven't been able to beat any of the top teams they've gone up against in recent times this season. So could that be a cause for concern if you're a New York Knicks fan, currently one of the top teams in the East, but are you really a top team when it comes to going up against the very best?
Boy, that's an interesting topic. We'll leave that one to the side. We'll come back to that one. Yeah, but in terms of like Bickerstaff and the job he's done, I think you have to also give great credit to the front office to be able to kind of bounce back from the appointment of Monty Williams, right? Because that didn't go so well last year. Obviously, we know Monty Williams had some personal problems and whatnot in his life and whatnot, and maybe it's kind of spilled out into his work. But they've been able to assemble a young, competitive squad with good veterans. Because, like, if you look back at some of the years, they were having veterans like Alec Burks and Bogdanovich and guys like that, who I'm not so sure how much of a presence they would have had or relationships they would have had with some of those younger players in that squad. Where, like you said, bro, you're bringing back Tobias Harris, who knows the culture of Detroit basketball and what it takes to be a Detroit basketball player and whatnot. Same with Malik Beasley. Like, those guys as your vets now changes the dynamic of things. The players are a lot more knit together. I think they're more connected on the defensive end of the floor. They're very competitive. And I'm looking at someone like I saw Thompson, where he's somebody that is going to end up becoming an elite defender for their team and then one of the elite defenders in the NBA, right? So then obviously you've got to speak about Cade Cunningham, all-star for the first time this year. Like, they've got a lot of good young talent. They've drafted well. Like, guys picked up guys like Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duran. Like, so there's a lot of talent, and like the way that they've constructed this roster, it just makes it easy for a guy like Bickerstaff, who's so experienced, to come in, and it doesn't matter how he decides to coach, right, and develop these players, because he's been there and done it. There's a lot of trust there already, so he can come in and just do what he needs to do, and all the work he's been able to do is bearing fruit right now with 33 wins this season. It's a lot, and I feel like he has to be coach of the year. Like unless you're gonna give it to Kenny Atkinson, potentially JJ Redick if it ends up with a really good year for the Lakers. I don't know, like so it should be pretty interesting from that perspective. But let's talk about New York. Actually, let's add this topic in here because you mentioned it, right? You see, with New York, I always have a problem with them, right? My issue is it comes down to the coach. And that's the first one. Tibbs running his guys into the ground. So this is the prime example of it, right? On Sunday, the Celtics play the Knicks. The Knicks are down 20 in the fourth quarter. Karl Anthony Towns has a injury. I think he clashes with somebody and like he kind of rolls his ankle or something. He goes to the bench. There's like 5 minutes to go left or 3 minutes to go left. He puts Karl Anthony Towns back in and the guy is limping. The game is done. You're not going to win the game from here. It's done. Sit the guy. He puts him back out on the floor. That is going to be the downfall of the Knicks when it comes playoff time. It's simple. It happened to them last year where they ran out of steam. OG Anunoby went down. Josh Hart went down for a few games. And they got through that series against the Sixers through 7 games. It was a tough series against the Sixers. They get to the second round. They play the Pacers, and the Pacers in 7 games blew them out on their floor, scoring in threes at like a historic rate ever in the playoffs ever before. And it was all down to just, I think, 1, poor roster construction in terms of getting good depth, and then 2, Tibbs running his guys to the ground and not utilizing his bench and going down his bench in the regular season to save his guys for the real deal. And also they've messed things up in terms of roster construction. So Jalen Brunson's taken less money in order to give OG Anunoby the highest contract in Knicks history, which is kind of crazy to me, right? And then you brought in Karl Anthony Towns, which I think was a good move because they needed to get somebody in that center position. It's a good move. But then I'm looking at it and I'm like, are all of their guys elite defenders like the way they were saying it? Because I'm not so sure. What do you think, bro?
It's tough, right? Yeah, you speak about the Tibbs situation. I don't think there's anything anybody can do unless you opt in changing the coach, because he's been like that for years now. Stubborn, sticks with his guys, and it either works or it doesn't. And especially in this day and age, I don't think there's a need for it. Like you said, you construct your roster a certain way. You can rotate guys in. You have the quality to make up from that off the bench. Now, in terms of their roster, I was excited after the Karl Anthony Towns trade because I looked at the team and I said, Jalen Brunson, an ascending star, a leader for this team. You get rid of Julius Randle. You bring in a guy that's going to stretch the floor for you, which in the past has been one of the issues for the New York Knicks as well, not having enough floor spaces on the court that can open up the floor for the likes of Jalen Brunson to score. At times it would get a bit clogged in the paint and so forth. And then you've got OG who can shoot the ball, Josh Hart, who's a utility player of sorts, great rebounder. He can have those games every now and then where he's shooting the ball at an efficient clip and is a key guy in crucial games. And then, guys that can contribute off the bench like Deuce McBride, Cameron Payne, Precious, even though he's here and there, Landry Shamet, who might not be there all the time, but can shoot here and there. So the Knicks, for me, are a good team, but I'm not sure, like you said, when it comes to the playoffs, whether they'll be able to sustain playing well in a 7-game series, because I feel like the way their roster's constructed, the way they're coached overall in terms of their stars and how they play and how they go about their business, it is easier for a team to pick you apart when, in a sense, your coaching is predictable in the way that your players play a large amount of minutes. You can kind of piece together an easier strategy to pick that team apart because there are not a lot of adaptations and adjustments that you'll see from them. What you see is what you get from the New York Knicks. And I feel like they've become one of those teams in some sorts where they've got talented players, talent all over the court when you look at their starting five. But when that starting five starts to break down now, the answers are not as clear for the Knicks. And how do you overcome that?
It's interesting because like you look down their bench, you've got notable names. You said Landry Shamet, there's Campaign, Deuce McBride, who's actually improved a lot since coming into the Knicks. That one for sure. I'm trying to think. I mean, Mitchell Robinson apparently has been upgraded to questionable, so he's going to be returning very soon. So he'll be back integrated. I think they missed a trick before the trade deadline. They should have moved for some pieces, something to just kind of bolster up that depth on the bench. Because they were, I mean, to be honest, they can still do it now. There's free agents out there. If they want to pay the minimum to some free agent guys to keep them going throughout the playoffs, there's an opportunity to go out there and do it. I just wonder, what they're capable of doing, to be honest, from a roster perspective. But it should be interesting from that perspective there. And then when we're talking about them against the top teams, right? Like that's a tough one because you have to be able to game plan for the potential matchup of a Cavs or a Celtics in the playoffs. And each of those teams have their own issues, right? So with the Cavs, in the interior, you have to be able to deal with Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. Now, them as a duo, they're very dangerous. And and we know how they are. So it's like when you look at the Knicks, they have to be able to have, a double big lineup for the most part, right? When dealing with them. And then obviously because if you can move Cat to the 4, for example, that means there's some shooting and you can pull one of their guys out of the paint to be able to make it maybe easier for someone like Jalen Brunson to go inside and score. But then for the Celtics, it's a different story. It's like you got 5 out shooters. So it's like you have to be able to get out to them as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. Like you get them guys are getting pulled out of the center position if you're just gonna go single big. It's a tough one. And those matchups, they have to figure it out. And this is why I feel like they've missed a trick. Should have done something in the trade deadline to address some of the issues that they may have against their top team. Because at the end of the day, if you're constructing a roster, you know who's the top guys in your conference. So what do? You look at their strengths, you look at your weaknesses, and then address them so that you can see if you can try and go for them. As for Tibbs, like you said, he's kind of stuck in his ways. He's going to continue to run guys into the ground regardless. And that's fine. If you're going to do that, just make sure you have a good enough bench with some depth of people you can trust to just kind of filter them throughout the regular season so you can get to the postseason. And then if you want to run guys to the ground, you're welcome to, because you only have 2 months of basketball left to go, depending on how you perform. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how, because if they have a quick, pretty disappointing run, do you reckon that there's going to be a change? And when I say a change, I don't think, I'm not necessarily thinking players, because they've invested a lot to try and get it to this point. Do you think that they may look at moving Tibbs out?
It's a possibility. I mean, they did so much to try and recreate the Villanova Knicks and bring in Cat and so forth. The only other change there is the head coach that has been there for a few years now. And whether you can bring in a guy that has fresher ideas and is potentially more adjustable and open to adjustments in a way that can revitalize this Knicks roster and the team from within. So that there's a possibility. I would say it's a possibility, because I think this season more than ever, if correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably an expectation for this team to make a deep playoff run in the East. And if they end up falling up short, then questions have to be asked.
Yeah, I feel like we're heading down that direction. If the playoff run is very disappointing, like they fall flat on their face, I think there'll be questions asked of the coach. Honestly, there will be, and that coaching staff may have to be dismantled, and they have to start again from that perspective, because they've got a pretty good team. They need to make some adjustments, but coaching is a big one as well to get them over the line. All right, let's move on. The Phoenix Suns. It's looking bad right now. They're currently outside of the playoff picture, sitting 11th in the Western Conference, a 27-31 record right now. So they're below 500. and it's looking like there's trouble in paradise. So based off of Kevin Durant's, well, let's start at the trade deadline. There was the news that came out that said that they were looking to trade into the Warriors, which I would have believed, seeing Jimmy Butler eventually moved to the Warriors and then to the Heat, for it all to kind of like facilitate. Um, sorry, from the Warriors to the Phoenix Suns. That was how it was going to facilitate. When KD and his team had heard of that trade kind of being put together, he rejected it automatically because he didn't want to be traded mid-season. So he said on Draymond Green's podcast that he wants to be able to end his career on his own terms, however that may be. He doesn't agree with, trading mid-season because he's already gone through that experience and he's seen how difficult it can be for a team to recover, because when a player of his caliber with the kind of money that he's looking for goes to a team, that team will have to give up a lot to bring him in, and it changes the trajectory of your team potentially for a few years after that. So I'm asking the question, right? Should they blow it up if they don't make the playoffs this year? Should they just disband this whole thing? KD, Bradley Beal, even Devin Booker. Should there be a complete change of how they're going to do things moving forward?
No question. I think so. When you look at and we were saying off stream, it's kind of crazy how time can move by so quickly, because not long ago, this Phoenix Suns team coming out of the bubble were one of the most promising sides in the league, with a Devin Booker that continued to develop and was under the tutelage of CP3. They had DeAndre Ayton, who at the time we didn't know how it was going to end up there. Obviously, Monty Williams coming in and being a hit there before things went sour. There was a lot of good things happening in Phoenix, and fast forward, we look at the new ownership that comes in, and how Matt Ishbia really wanted to really make a statement in Phoenix and do some big things. Bringing in KD most definitely has been one of those things. And then they go and trade for Bradley Beal, and that's a completely different team. And we always questioned, well, their depth, the depth of that side, with the money that was committed to Devin Booker, to KD, to now Bradley Beal with a no trade clause in his contract. How were you going to build a team that was good enough? And to be honest, that conversation faded straight away when we looked at the big three and their lack of availability. We looked at Bradley Beal's injuries. We looked at Devin Booker's niggling injuries, Kevin Durant here and there. But at times he was the most available of those three. And that says a lot, considering that KD's had, the most significant of injuries out of all three of them. And, and his age also. But he's still producing at a really good level. But yeah, it's interesting. Him and it's understandable at the same time with him wanting to, make decisions on his own terms. Because when you look at a player of that caliber and Kevin Durant, he's not going to be one to be traded to a team where he has to adjust mid-season, and the expectations are going to be up in the air wherever he ends up. No, he's going to want to be able to make that decision for himself, like he has in the past. With going to Golden State, going to Brooklyn, and then, even though those stints, well, the stint in Brooklyn didn't work out, Golden State obviously got his first and second championships. But yeah, you got the feeling that the Brooklyn stint was the first time since OKC where he wanted to put a stamp down on his career and kind of silence the doubters. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case in Phoenix. Now it's another situation where, kind of how he depicted it, they had to change a lot within their roster to accommodate having Kevin Durant, and then to accommodate bringing in Bradley Beal, and then to accommodate, of course, keeping Devin Booker, whose name has been in trade talks here and there regarding his future in Phoenix. Drafted there, of course. So I think this offseason is going to be big for Phoenix. It's going to be tough to see how they'd be able to bounce back in the immediate future if they do end up losing, a Kevin Durant, for example, or moving on from the Devin Booker kind of franchise experiment of sorts. But yeah, it will be a big decision come this off season, because it has been disappointing by any means. Even if they do end up getting into the playoffs, depending on what they do, they'll look at the regular season performance and say, well, sadly, it's below expectations with what we've committed financially to the players. And I don't want to continuously be that guy, but I feel like in a sport like basketball, finances are even more important, because of what goes into building a roster and building a successful roster at that. So you've kind of got to look at the production and be shrewd with your money, in a sense, to make sure that it's not just a 1, 2, or 3-man team. You've got a very healthy roster of players that are hungry, they want to compete, and they're good enough to compete and to complement the guys that are the focal points of your team. And I just think from the very beginning, once they moved on from the CP3 Booker era and all of that stuff, I don't think Phoenix have done a good job of doing just that.
Yeah, because I think with KD, right, like obviously, yeah, moving to Brooklyn was trying to just kind of set his mark and say, I can win without Steph. Obviously, he's brought together Kyrie and James Harden, and that didn't work out. And he just was like, okay, well, it's time to move on because nothing's working here. I've tried to give everything, and it's just not worked out. Move to Phoenix to pair up with Devin Booker mid-season as well, that was always going to be tough, always going to be an adjustment. For them to go out there and go and get Bradley Beal, I just can't believe they went out to made that move. When you look at it now, it's such a horrible move to make because it really stripped them so much of everything that they have, even for the future. Because now it's like they don't have the draft picks until they don't have any draft picks until 2031 or something like that. So it's like, or I think they've been able to close some of that draft capital back. But honestly, it's like you've really crippled yourself by making those moves when you could have just really taken time and said, let's make this a 3-year process. And if we have to make any moves, let's make sure that they're minimal and don't affect our draft capital in case we need to kind of pull the plug on this kind of experiment. And let's make sure that we keep Bradley Beal, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant in a good place, right? To keep us continually competitive. Because now they're going to be looking to shop Kevin Durant around. Where does he go? I saw a clip earlier on today. Carmelo Anthony's got a podcast and he's speaking about the situation with KD. And he's saying he should go back home to DC, go down to Washington, finish your career down there, bring some life into the organization. You're laughing. Why are you
laughing? DC. What are you saying? Link up with Chris Middleton, man. Shout out to Chris Middleton, man.
Hey, Marcus Smart's down there too,
hey,
man.
Marcus Smart. I saw him doing kip ups like he's HBK, fam. What is this sweet chin music?
So I mean, where does he go? Because there was a lot of talks during the ahead of the trade deadline that he could potentially go to the Rockets, being back in Texas where he went to college and stuff like that. But I don't know where he goes at this point. Not to say that he's, like I'm sure there's loads of teams that would love. I think everyone, if he's available for a trade, every team in the NBA is gonna call their front office and see what they want for him for sure. Right? He's seen to overcome his injury issues that he's had. He stayed on the floor and he's produced. But at 37, I think he is right now. There's he's gonna command a lot. A 1 year, 2 year, it's gonna be at least 100 million. On a 2-year deal, be a 1 year, be a 50-something million kind of contract. So it's like it's gonna be interesting to see what they do, to be honest with you, because he's going into his final year of the deal now. So he's at the highest point of the money he's going to get paid in terms of guaranteed money. So who's going to take on that for a year? And then you have to see if you can get an agreement with him to continue to extend that for an extra couple of years potentially, right, as he reaches age 40. And is that going to be enough in your team to make you competitive? Will you have to give up a lot to try and get? I just don't know where he goes. I mean, I feel like he may want to go back to Brooklyn and finish off that story there potentially, because I feel like he actually enjoyed playing in Brooklyn, but I don't know where their squad is going. They got a good young squad there, but you know,
it was the organization in the end, then it the guys in the hierarchy that kind of messed it all up.
Yeah,
it seemed at least that relationship soured.
And then you've got obviously there's another story in OKC that he could potentially finish, but how does that work? You know, we've got a lot of young players that are developed very well over the last 3-4 years, and they're very much at the brink of potentially coming out of that Western Conference. Are you gonna now give up some of those crucial pieces to bring in Kevin Durant for his kind of farewell tour? Like, I don't know where he goes. Like, or does he just resign in Phoenix and they decide, okay, well, we got to move other pieces around you to try and make this work? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let's move on. Joel Embiid. Another blow in the season of the Philadelphia 76ers. We have Paul George announcing he's giving up podcasting for the rest of the season, shutting it down. Podcast P is shutting it down so that he can concentrate on winning the championship. Tyrese Maxey, keys to the franchise at this moment in time. They've brought in so many players on minimum contracts to make sure that they could be in a competitive place in the East, and they've fallen flat on their face, losing 33 games this year. And now Joel Embiid is looking to explore options for knee surgery, potential hip surgery, to try and extend his runway as an NBA player. What do you think about that, bro? He's got $300 million over the next 5 years, starting from this year of his contract with Philadelphia. What's going to happen now?
It's a tough one, right? Because, you know, the positives they have in Tyrese Maxey, their rookie McCain ended up getting injured, but there were a lot of promising moments from him prior to him getting injured. Paul George, oh man, Paul George. Now, I bet you, amid the pressure, someone in that organization has told him, pack it up, buddy, because Draymond Green's still out there doing his Draymond Green was in the playoffs doing his podcast, bro. After playoff games, he was going back to the studio and doing debriefs, talking about how they didn't play good enough. So somebody within that Philly organization said, listen, yeah, these fans are getting sick and tired of your performances, bro. And they don't want to be hearing your podcast with you talking about games and all of this business. Shut it down for a little bit. Go, put your head down, do your thing in it, and be. Don't even say playoff P. Don't say podcast P. Don't say playoff P. Just be P in it. Just be P.
Just be P.
Just be P. Man. So, it's tough. And then Joel Embiid. I looked at Basketball Reference, right? Because I wanted to get some stats for you. So in his 11 seasons in the NBA, he's never played 70 games in his career. In total, in a regular season, he's missed 426 regular season games.
Wow.
That includes the first 2 years that he didn't play at all. He was out, and then the remainder, the other 9 seasons, 426 regular season games. Now, at this current moment, they're 4 games behind Golden State, who are in the 8th seed. So you have to rely upon the teams that are above you, and then of course find some form and claw back position to get into a playoff spot. But even then, when we're speaking about Embiid, your franchise guy potentially thinking about getting meniscus replacement, the comments that we've seen from at that front, and you know, when we think about the history of big men and how when they start to get those injuries in the lower extremities, how that affects them, their explosiveness. A guy like Embiid, even though he's kind of tailored his game in the last few years to try and take the load off, he can't help but be, you know, one of those big men who are gonna be clanging and banging in the post, you know, fadeaways, a few dunks here and there. Defensively, it all adds up. And I think for Joel Embiid, the older he gets, is the more it's gonna start to show. So Philadelphia are in a very awkward position with him right now, because with Tyrese Maxey, you have a good player, but he's not exactly a franchise guy that's going to lead you. He might be a complementary piece at this moment of time. You can't say his ceiling has been reached just yet, so you don't know what exactly he's going to turn into. But I don't think he's exactly ready for you to say, boom, lead us. Paul George, you bring him in, it clearly hasn't worked out at all in a Philadelphia shirt, and we know how ruthless those fans can be. They'll boo him out of the window, out of the building, and that has happened already a few times this season. So when we think about the NBA situation, we have a strong sample size now. What are you gonna do as an organization, as Daryl Morey and co? Who knows? Who knows, man? Because a lot of what they end up doing is going to depend on who's interested. If you want to market Embiid, who's interested in bringing the big guy in? There's no doubt about his talent, but it's all about his injuries. You know, we say a lot about AD, but Joel Embiid is on another level when it comes to games out. I mean, we started the season with him actively talking about not playing back-to-backs, and then the investigating the situation. That's how wild it is.
That was a wild situation when that happened, and there was like it's literally because he's injured. He just literally cannot do a back-to-back. He has like he's in that position now. I mean, we spoke about this earlier on in the week when that news dropped, and I reacted to it on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Right? I was like, something's got to happen here. Like we've got to look at man like Chino in the building. What are you saying?
Damn, I just hold on. I just show up before the class dismissed so I don't get marked absent. You know, when you skip class the whole session and you show up, and you got to show up 15 minutes before the class dismissed so you don't get marked absent.
I always say Chino, man.
Yeah, man.
Come on. But like Joel Embiid, he's in trouble.
Boy.
He's in
That's
trouble.
where we're starting, bro. I say, let me say real quick. I don't know what y'all talking about, but this is what I've been thinking about because I've been getting the news. I want to give him maximum 2 years. I don't even know if he have that before it's announced about retirement, bro. He's gonna retire soon.
I was like, because one of the questions I was gonna ask is it over for his career? Because when they're talking about they want to break a piece of your hip so that they can relieve pressure on your knee, that's a problem. I'm sorry. If they're saying that's one of the procedures that we have to do to extend your runway in your career, it's over.
Is it even worth it?
It's not, because look, I told you that organization is a horrible organization, yeah, for not shutting him down early enough, yeah. How can I see Hater Report or Centel, yeah, say, or Brick Report or something go block of the year from Embiid? He's running into the corner, yeah, and he falls into the crowd. I'm saying we're in trouble when things like this is happening, bro. That organization should have shut him down from the moment he said, "I can't do back-to-backs." It's over. At that point, we need to go do some more surgery, rest, get yourself right for next year. He should be shutting it down now. They should be announcing it today that he won't play again this season. Give himself 8 months until the next following season and see if he can be in a position to be ready at training camp so that he can go again and see if he can continue his career. Like,
you know what? I can't believe it, You was bringing up to me and you reminded me the fact of how he had cerebral palsy in the playoffs and stuff like
Bro,
that. And then he went off and went to the Olympics. Nah, man.
a guy was on one leg, yeah. He was in the garden in New York. He threw the lob, yeah, off the backboard and dunked it and landed on the same knee that's been bothering him, and he was on the ground, bro.
His knee was bleeding.
It's over, man. It has to be. Like, unless we find like some miracle like Lonzo Ball. You know what I'm saying? Lonzo Ball had to get some real wicked replacement in his knee to be able to do balling right now. Unless we find some miracle doctor to come and do that for him, it's over. I'm sorry. And it's like, it's a lot of money you've invested on this contract. You're going to have to pay it all out if you terminate this contract because he has to retire. And it's on Daryl Morey's fault. It's his fault. You've given him this contract knowing his injury problems. It's a max contract. He's got loads of injury problems. Like you said, bro, he didn't play the first 2 years. That should have been the biggest indicator that he wasn't going to be able to have a serviceable career in the NBA, right? And then you pair him with James Harden. You don't want to give James Harden the max contracts. Man's going to China, promotional activities. Daryl Morey is a liar. I'll repeat again. Daryl Morey is a liar. And then now look, you've made this guy suffer to the point where he may not even be able to play basketball like the way he wants to play anymore. He can't even get inside. He's in the perimeter. He's trying to shoot little set shots and jumpers over you in 2-point range. Like, come on, man. He can't even do post moves anymore. He ain't got the explosiveness to turn and hit the fadeaways. It's a problem, man. What do you think happens, though? Do you reckon that he gets the surgery and then, they shut him down, he gets surgery, and then he can maybe look to recover to come back next season? Do you reckon he gets traded at the end of the year, potentially?
I find it hard to believe he'll end up getting traded, I don't know why, but I don't think that's going to be the case. It's going to be tough for that to happen. But I do think he's going to end up being shut down and he'll have surgery because he needs it. If a miracle is going to happen, he needs a full off season where activity is at a minimal level, because with all of the things he's gone through in the last few years, postseason included, just lay low. We know the talent this guy has, but if you want to speak about preserving a career, you need to do it right this time, because you can't have surgery, rush the recovery, go and play in the Olympics because you won a gold medal. Cool, you got that gold medal, but at what cost? At what cost? Was it worth it? Maybe so, because I guess at the end of your career, you're going to be looking at that medal in a box or hanging up on a wall and saying, I was there. But at the same time, you didn't exactly look good in the games that you started in the Olympics. So that memory is going to be a little bitter when you look back at the way he played. I don't think people paid a lot of attention to the fact that he was coming off a playoff run where he went through a hell of a lot just to even be there.
And let's not forget, he promised that he was going to play for Cameroon. He didn't play for Cameroon. He promised he was going to play for France. He didn't play for France. He took his American passport and he played for the USA. Also go and get himself this gold medal. And now look at where he is. Shut him down, man. Daryl Morey, your job is on the line for this. Honestly, he has to be done because of this. He made so many bad decisions. Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. Right, let's round up the show with a bit of league roundup, man. So you, man, give me the rundown, the lowdown on your teams. Let me know how you're feeling, man. What's the energy feeling like as we kind of draw closer to April and the playoffs?
Hey, you know how it's going with OKC, number 1 seed. I'm feeling good. It was interesting against Brooklyn in that game. We end up winning it in the end, but in certain parts of the game, you could see that they employed a strategy on doubling or tripling up on Shea to get the ball out of his hands and getting into awkward positions to see if others can beat them. And obviously we ended up doing it. But we spoke last week about my kind of concerns come playoff time when the whistle is a little more harsh. There's less whistle in the playoffs, a bit more physicality. How is that gonna translate for Oklahoma City? And I think tests like Brooklyn the other day are exactly what this team needs in order to kind of work through those kinks and see and try different strategies and see if they'll be effective in different scenarios when we get into kind of the business end of the campaign, and we can look and see how teams are going to be kind of dialing in, because a lot of sides are still going to be competitive for the remainder of this season because of how tight the spaces are between the guaranteed playoff spots and the play-in opportunities.
You know what's interesting about OKC is that they actually have to push a bit more, the Cleveland Cavaliers, to get that number one overall seed, because then you get that home court advantage for the whole playoffs, because you've only lost 4 games at home all year. So it's like having that extra bit of advantage in the playoffs is going to help so much more for OKC. So that's the real kind of test now, is can you sustain a good enough run throughout between now and the end of the regular season, as Cleveland are your kind of like close kind of competitors for that number one overall spot in terms of the league standings. For the Celtics, we lost last night against Detroit. Second night of a back-to-back. A few guys out again, struggling with health this year. Like it's just natural, right? You've got loads of guys going to the Olympics, obviously went through the playoffs and all of that. You're never going to have 2 seasons in a row where your complete roster is fully healthy. So last night we were tied at half, 55 apiece, and then it just kind of we couldn't sustain through the last half of the game. But not worried, comfortably in that second seed. I don't think they're going to push for that top seed. To be honest with you, I feel like they're going to give it to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think their aim is just to try and be healthy for the playoffs. Because if we can have all of our guys healthy for the playoffs, then I think it's going to be a tough situation for most teams in the NBA when we take them on. And yeah, like I feel like the team have definitely come out of their slump that they was in, like around like in December and like the start of January, mid-January. Now they're back into a rhythm after All-Star break. They seem like they're just ready to kick on for the rest of this season. I just want all of the guys to be healthy, because I don't think we have the same luck like we had last year. Let's say we lose Kristaps Porzingis for the majority of the playoffs and still win it, basically. Like that's not going to happen this year. Like if he's out for any long period of time, if JB's out for any period of time, like if anybody else is injured, it will be tough. Like, so we have to wait and see what happens there. But things are looking good. Chino, where you at? I need some Miami Heat talk, man.
I ain't got none for you, bro.
I'm hearing Dwayne Wade. I'm hearing Dwayne Wade talking about they didn't pay me. Pat Riley didn't pay me. They paid Hassan Whiteside $100 million. They should have looked after me first.
And was it
what do you think?
cookies?
What do you think I'm gonna say? I'm gonna go against it? Like that's my goat. I'm gonna agree. I mean, everybody know they paid Whiteside and Tyler Johnson before even if Wade had no knees. You pay the man however much. It's just loyalty, respect. Like they didn't respect Wade. I feel like you paid a man like how the Lakers did for Kobe. Like you just Dwayne Wade. He brought you your first championship. He brought you LeBron James. LeBron James didn't come to Miami because it's South Beach and he wanted to chill. He came to Miami to play with Dwayne Wade, and that ended up giving you 2 more championships. He brought you Jimmy Butler, who took you to 2 finals. You just never gave Jimmy the tools he needed to win. Like the organization is poorly run. Like the championships we won, we just won off Wade greatness and LeBron pretty much. And this is just telling how great Wade is because he's a part of all 3 of those championships. You know what I'm saying? It's the front office is really bad. Like it's just really it's for Mickey Harris and his son and Parali. It's all about how can we save Mickey money like in fucking Jews.
Oh, whoa. Kanye West, you're in trouble, bro. What's wrong with you?
no, no, I said my shoes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just disgusting, man. Like it's ridiculous how they're running the organization, bro. And since we traded Jimmy, we were 2-7, and the Golden State Warriors are 6-1 since
Yeah.
Jimmy got there, and they're only 6-1 because they lost that one game because they got robbed by the ref. But people are now looking at them like, yeah, I don't know if I want to see Steph and Jimmy in the playoff because like that's who Jimmy is. When he's locked in, and we should have definitely got a championship or two out of the Jimmy era. But you know what I'm saying? They never gave. It's just crazy, bro. Like they had two opportunities to give him a good point guard. They had an opportunity to go get Kyrie for cheap, 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 cheap. The same thing you paid for Terry Rozier. That's what was Kyrie asking price when he was at Brooklyn. And then you're like, now we want KD. You don't. You want KD, but you don't want to pay KD money. Like, how does that make sense? It's like me going to a dealership saying, I want the Benz GLE, but I have a Toyota fucking Camry money. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, don't. Oh my god, bro. Don't even get me started, bro. Like, these niggas finna get me tight. And then they missed out on Dame because they don't want to put Caleb Martin in the package. Caleb fucking Martin, you haven't even heard his name since he left us. Like, what are we doing, bro? Like, these are the shit Miami does, bro. Hype up people like Caleb, Gabe Vincent. Like, everybody know when these guys leave the SPO program, they're dead. They're washed, bro. Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Kendrick Nunn. Where's Kendrick Nunn?
Oh, Kendrick Nunn.
He's in
Like,
the Euro
Ke-
League right now.
did he win Rookie of the Year or he was runner up? Did he win?
He was runner up, I think.
Like,
Was it the same year that Jar won it?
no, no, was it? No, I don't know. But
Well, I don't know if he came rookie of the year.
like, Spo had these guys in like Rookie of the Year conversation, undrafted guys. Like, I mean, Max Struz, he's here and there in Cleveland, like he does his thing. You know what I'm saying? But that's because he's a shooter. But it's I don't know, bro.
So if you end up in the play-in right now, if the
I
season
ain't
was to finish,
watching it, bro. I'm
if
not
the
watching.
season finishes right now, you take on the Orlando Magic for that seventh seed.
Lose the game. Tank for Cooper Flag, bro. Tank.
Speaking of that, yeah, like it's looking like he's locked into going to the Washington Wizards. You know,
Nah.
Bro,
it's
man. Hey,
locked in.
it's an all black affair, yeah.
Come.
It's an all black affair. It's peak.
Peak, but it's not a lot just yet. The Charlotte Hornets. I don't know if he wants to go there. That's a.
Shut the Hornets. Yeah.
I
Yo,
don't think he wants to
hey,
go
we're going from a funeral home in DC to gangland, fam. What's this?
there. Oh man, I don't know if he wants to go there. Like, and to be honest with you, if the Spurs are like really greedy, they can really just shut the season down right now and tank, and then see if they can grab him.
You know what? So speaking of the Spurs, prayers to Coach Pop, man.
Oh yeah, the news.
Prayers to Coach Pop. Because obviously, yeah, he had a mild stroke a while back. He's been out, I think, since November, and it was revealed that he won't be able to return for the rest of the season, and his future is now in doubt regarding his being a head coach for the San Antonio Spurs. So he had a meeting with the players, and I'm sure that was very emotional because a lot of those guys, young guys, look up to him, and his tutelage and experience being one of the greatest NBA coaches of all time. So prayers to Coach Pop, man, and we hope he can recover.
For sure, man. Prayers to him and his family, man, as well, going through this kind of difficult time. Like, yeah, I feel like he should just kind of, let's say, just the pressures and the expectation of being a head coach is maybe a bit too much for him at this point in his career, man. And he's done a lot for the game of basketball and his own career and for that organization. Yeah, he might just have to just kind of call it a day on his career. And I don't think anybody will, feel any kind of way about it because he's achieved everything he can, and all of that. But look, man, it's the end of the show. It was a good show. Chino came in here for his little extra credit at the end. We got a little Miami rant, which is always fun. But people, make sure you're hitting that like button, subscribe button as well if you're new. Hit the notification bell. And before we get out of here, let the people know where they can find you, man.
So you can find me over at CM22ENT over on YouTube. Manchester United videos. Catch me with my twin bro, Cappy, the United Twins. Match reviews, speaking about news here and there. We're revolving around Manchester United. There seems to be a lot of things going on, so might have to ramp it up. And also, make sure you're watching United State of Mind, man. Ronan's back in the scene. Speaking about Manchester United, Marcus Rashford video up today. Spoke about the year of Ineos. Hey, and look out for Chino's channel as well, man. Starting soon.
And if you're a Man United fan and you're wondering why Ineos is doing all of the job cuts, where the money is, look behind Roland in those shoeboxes. All the money that the workers and what we should be using to buy players, right there behind Roland in those shoeboxes. Surgeon personally delivered them to him.
Hey.
They said they extracted the money out the bank account and just get the rubber bands.
Yeah, rolling up all the money.
I'm not part of the money laundering. Let's keep it quiet. But hey, yeah, United State of Mind. We're back. There'll be another video tomorrow, so make sure you stay tuned to that. And then obviously, so new month coming up. March is beginning, so there's gonna be something new that I might drop on TikTok maybe. So yeah, stay tuned for that as well. But yeah, people, we're back with another big free show next week. So make sure you stay tuned. And we're out, people. Peace.
Big up, people.